Hi, welcome to First Sense Friday and to my living room. One day I will have a studio background, but right now I like having you in my space um, when it's good to be in my space. Sometimes I need my space and I don't want anybody in it. So today, such a beautiful day out there, and it's a good time, always a good time to talk about how are you handling this flow of life? Are you able to be in the flow? Can you dial back? Can you relax? Can you be in the wherever the river takes you? And I'm not saying that you need to be without choice, but it definitely takes some practice to drop the resistance. So I wanted to talk a little bit about struggle. And we all have a protective mechanism that comes up when we're met with a counterforce. So say you have an idea about a project and someone disagrees with it, and then they give their opinion, and you have a natural reactive energy. We're going to get visited, and hopefully she won't knock the laptop off the couch. But you have a natural tendency to, want to defend home, want to come back at it and push back against whatever their position was. I think that's within us. I think, certain people have more of a push than others. Some people just doesn't phase. They kind of go with the flow. And that's good. I would recommend learning that. And that's what we're going to talk about. Because when you're in a struggle, what you're doing is you're actually creating more of a difficulty. You're contributing to the problem. So have you ever been in a relationship or a discussion with someone and you're going back and forth, and then finally you just throw up your hands and you're like, forget it. I'm done. I'm walking away, or I'm done with this conversation. And then you can feel it just gets dropped. Whatever was happening, you can feel the energy drop, and everything comes back to energy, right? So this act of learning, what I'm suggesting is that we learn when we're in struggle. I'm going to struggle with the cat today because she likes to rub up against the laptop, and she's going to knock it off the couch if she does. So we'll see how this goes. I'll work with my energy, so maybe she'll just lie down and it'll be an example of how to go with the flow. So what happens when one party or the other throws up their hands and says, either this just isn't working now, and let's revisit it later, or I give up. What happens is it's like the tug of war rope, right? When somebody drops one end of it, the other side is usually going to either stand there a little stupefied, or they're going to fall on their fanny because they're going to pull the rope back, taking advantage of the fact that you're not pulling anymore. Either way, you've dropped your end, and you can stop resisting and creating and contributing to more of the energy. So this isn't all about push pull or anything like that. I actually feel like we get in a big struggle with our self-worth, and that's what this has led to this week. And just today I had a session with someone who I asked her, how much longer are other people's opinions going to be how she navigates her life? Like at some point we need to make a decision of how they're going to contribute, and if they get the say. So self-worth follows the same pattern, because if you're too tied into what other people think of you, and we all have it to some degree, but the more conscious you become of it, I think the easier it is to take into consideration how you're feeling, and then listen to other people. Sometimes they have great advice. But when you're in the struggle part of this is when you're paying too much attention to what other people think of you, and giving too much weight to their perception. And then when you're able to release and let that go, you assume the position of what I believe matters most, and that's how we think of ourselves. So that becomes self-worth. So if you're in struggle, if you're thinking constantly about what other people think of you, and that becomes the primary voice in your head, you are struggling, you're resisting your own greatness. And this is perfect timing today, because this morning I took the hardest spin class, including the ones I used to teach, and I had a pretty good reputation for pushing people nicely. But this morning's class was so hard, but it was fun. And at one point we had to go for 4 miles straight as fast as we could to get those 4 miles, right? And it was a good challenge. And about 2.5 miles in, I realized I was creating more challenge for myself. Now, on an indoor cycling bike, there's a resistance knob. So I was like, this is perfect, and I'll be honest, I didn't know what today's subject was, because I write these weeks in advance, unless one pops up and I just have to get it out. But when I was pushing on, thinking about how I was resisting this, there was no test. Nobody was going to come over and look at my monitor. Nobody was going to say you suck because you didn't do it in a certain amount of time. It's just not the type of gym I go to. So, but I was in my own head, and I was struggling with the fact that I wasn't beating my numbers and some preconceived notion I had in there. So I decided to stop resisting my own greatness, whatever that was going to be this morning. And when I did that, I could breathe easier. My legs still felt like they were going to fall off. I'm not going to lie. But I stopped worrying about meeting some kind of measurement that no one put out there for me, except previously in my lifetime, and any messages that might be in there, and my perception that if I didn't do it in a certain amount of time, well, then maybe I slacked or whatever. So the follow-up to that was, I take this class. I love how all this stuff comes together, and even if you're not planning it, but you're paying attention, stuff is really fun. So my Fridays are usually pretty packed, and I do the class. I never packed my makeup today. And, I have sessions back to back to back, and booked my butt home because I had to be here to receive something. And I'm like, I got to do Facebook Live, and then realized you don't have any makeup on. And then I was like, well, the struggle. There is a great saying that change is inevitable, struggle is an option. And I was like, well, here's the change. Be the example of, I could struggle with this. I could worry about what you were thinking about Vicky's look with no makeup, or I could just say, here's my offering. It's free anyway. You're going to want your money back. And whatever the response was, I would be very inauthentic if I was saying, I care more about what you think about the fact that of me without makeup than I do in spreading the message. So I'm like, get on there and share this with them, because that open book thing. So what I think of this as like a comparison to Quicksand. I forgot what it was called. So if you are ever, I'm told, I haven't experienced this, but if you're ever in quicksand, you're told to just stay still. Do not wiggle, because when you wiggle and you struggle, you end up going under, and there's no air to be found in there. So if you can relax and get into that space, kind of like a float tank. Did one of those about a month ago. That was pretty amazing. You can feel yourself letting go of all this tension that we carry around. And when you let go of the struggle of other people's opinions and their perceptions, including those who may have passed that you're still carrying around, including those relationships that you're no longer in. I had a discussion with somebody today that she thought she was mad at someone in the past, and I said, I don't think you're mad at yourself. And once we worked through that, and we both had some tears around it, it gets to be released. And then what happens is you start to really slide into that self-worth place that some call confidence. I think confidence is a con. I think it's when you're doing it for other people. So that would be the same as being so concerned about other people's perceptions. So what I believe is that when you stop that struggle of worrying about other people and what they think you naturally fill your space. You have an essence or a power that you emit from yourself, because you know, for the most part, that whatever is said of you, unless you believe it too, it's not going to rock your core. So I think that once we all have that feeling of self-worth inside, once we all tap into that and, have those conversations in your head over who is in my head, who's making the comments, you can stop being your own worst enemy, and you can actually begin to shift those belief systems that may have been holding you back. This is where a lot of people will talk about like their self-worth, and I have low self-esteem. We hear that a lot. And yes, it's absolutely possible. Want to hear how I get my cat to stop scratching? It's her language. So when you're in that space of really listening and knowing what you're saying about yourself and what you're believing about yourself, and it may not be the most complimentary. If you have low self-esteem, it's not on other people. It's on you to figure out what those messages are in your head. How are they contributing to what you believe about yourself? And then how can you shift it? My caveat that abusive relationship, get some help, get out. So you're worth loving simply because you exist. Simply because you decided to come into this lifetime, pull some cells together, and step forth and be very brave being human, because this is not for wimps, this whole human thing. So that's worthy right there. You don't have to do anything else in order to know that you've achieved worthiness. So if you want to kick it up a notch and you want to contribute into the world, that would be great. So if you find yourself in that contemplating what other people think, is she not the cutest thing? Like, even when she drives me bonkers, she is so stinking cute. And your animals will reflect that back to you, right? They believe that you are the most amazing thing. And I don't think it's all because of the food. See, look at that pretty face. She knows she's worthy inside. She knows how to ask for what she needs and be pushy. So, see, she's very pushy, but she wouldn't be my cat if she didn't know how to talk a lot. So how about this week? You pay attention to where you're floating, and where are you struggling? And if you have that dialogue going on in your head, stop to ask why you're talking to yourself that way. Is it true? Do I need to continue struggling? Can I start to believe, what other people say? Because most people reflect back, I think, very genuinely our amazingness, and we just don't want to listen. And I think we have to stop doing that. We have to stop refusing it and start listening. So you can also practice giving compliments to others, and then having and receiving them back again. And that will help you to turn down the critic or the challenging voice in there and start to listen to the one that is more supportive, which is really what it comes down to, no matter what we're talking about: self-esteem, struggle in life, self-worth. All of that really comes from stopping the chatter up here or replacing it with supportive thoughts. So don't struggle and go under the quicksand this week. Well, for the rest of your life, but let's start small. And then let me know what you're bumping into. If you need some help, I'm here. And if you'd like to speak to Leah, she is available most days. She does sleep about 22 hours a day, so you really got to book your appointments in advance. But she turns 15 next week, so she deserves her naps. Thank you so much, and thank you for being in my living room with me. Oh, see, she's so cute. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Take care.